music as well. Good to have everybody here. How is work? How is everything as family? All right, glad to be here. Um, First, Sean Oguns, thank you very much. I see you in the comment section on TikTok. Thank you so much. Um, thank you also for, you know, doing the absolutely brilliant work of a moderator. Thank you. And thanks to everyone. We're on 10.5K likes now. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. We're going to have a great time today. I noticed that we already have people here who are here to enjoy it, even though they're acting like they don't want to hear what we have to say. But thank you very much for being here, and thanks for your comments, even though you know that those comments don't necessarily make sense. And I'm talking specifically to you, Steven. But thank you for being here all the same. All right, so let's do the quick housekeeping. Let's please share the live. And please power tap like you're doing on TikTok. If you're on YouTube, please double tap on your screen. Thank you very much for being here. If you are on, we're you can always tell them to check us out on Facebook and or YouTube. It's also on Twitter. I was going to see if we can add Instagram momentarily. But thank you very much, everyone, for being here. All right, so let's do the quick housekeeping. And again, if you hear noises in the background, it's because, it is the present situation now. But I'm sure you're going to hear what I'm saying clearly all the same. So yeah, thank you. So let's quickly do that. Take about 30 seconds or so. I'm also doing the same here on this other device. Okay, so by the way, today's topic, there's something that Steve, said earlier, and I think it's a very good place to start. He says something about, you're talking about Igbo and everything. It's not really that, to be honest. We're discussing Nigerian history. Yesterday was an Igbo person on the Igbo, you're talking about Hausa and British. And I'm wondering the kind of water they used to bathe some people, like I said, the ingredients, everybody water now H2O. They want H2O get plus. The plus now ignorance because there is no way on earth you're going to discuss Nigeria's history, and also trying to understand why certain people have the same narrative and how we have been subjected to these narratives for many years. And if if you, regardless of where you're from, even if you're Igbo, if you spend some time to read some of these books, you will have a different way of viewing life, not just Nigeria, life. You can see how people can be made to become something else, not because of how God created them, but because they were intentionally conditioned, socially engineered by a group of people. And I said something some days ago that oftentimes you notice that certain people sound alike, right? So you see the most educated person speak, and the person sounds exactly like the illiterate from to the rule, but the rule is everybody sounds the same way and everybody believes the same thing for the most part. Again, the exceptions are there, and it's important. All right, so the exceptions exist, and it's important to acknowledge their existence. However, we also know that it's beyond just societal thing, a cultural experience. And so what we're saying basically is that people sound a certain way, they say certain things, they have the same rhetoric, and you begin to wonder how come this is happening. And the very quick answer to this is that it was designed to be so. Right? FFT. Today is Tuesday, so Tuesdays and Thursdays I usually show my face because we have shorter sessions. And thank you, moderator. Thank you, Empress, for also that. it's a conditioning, right? Like it was intentionally done, and to be honest, the more you understand this, I think this is my own personal reaction. I don't know if it's going to be yours, and I. Right, so we're having issues with the other device. Okay, I think it's good now. So I was saying that if you study these things out, or maybe even listen to what we're about to have today, there's a reaction I want to I want to believe you might have, because that's what I had after studying these things, and it's really that of compassion for folks from the southeast. Compassion because you are able to understand that what you're seeing is not people who want to be the way you see them, or it's really a product of social engineering, propagandization, and that's why they are where they are. I mean, God have mercy on everybody in Nigeria, but it's important that we get to the root of this matter. So, which of course explains the reason for today's topic. Again, we don't do these things because there's some kind of special attention to a particular group, even though it's not going to be a bad idea considering what that group has done in Nigeria. And again, this is not to say that one group is worse than any other group. It's just that if you are loud, you're very loud, and you're so loud that you accuse others of things that you are guilty of. At some point, those others will want to really dig into what you have done, not necessarily to make you feel bad, but at least to harm their own race, their own ethnicity, their own group. Like, listen, nobody perfect, but it's not that person that will come and teach you what perfection looks like, even your own imperfection. So why not fix your own imperfection, right? And let's fix ours. And we've talked about it a lot of times. When it comes to Yoruba people, ours is, and we thank God, we see changes, we see growth, and our own issue is usually internal, right? And while we're sorting that out, we can focus on that without having somebody go around the whole world telling us how to fix it. For instance, we posted a video this morning where Peter Obi had this brilliant idea of how Lagos can attract foreign investors. And his bright idea is for Lagos to not, punish people for illegal actions, not demolish any building, because of course they belong to his kinfolk. These are the things that you hear from people who don't understand the purpose of structure and who don't have any regard for order. Okay, so instead of spending all the time teaching me stuff, why not teach your own self these things? And then for my own people, why not let's understand the fact that this person shouldn't have the guts to talk to you the way he does, based on their. I think it's a very, very, very important book, right? If you really want to understand the evolution of Nigeria as a country. And one of the things that we discovered, looking at the book, was actually the role that the intellectuals played in the molding or shaping of public perception, especially in Igbo land. Now, today's focus is what happened before the war, and maybe part of it during the war. But one day, not today, but one day, we're going to have a session, someday, somehow, we're going to have a session where we're going to actually delve into the role of intellectuals in the Nigerian Civil War. And one of the funny things you're going to get out of this whole thing is that just because a person has degrees doesn't mean they have sense. If you get degree like thermometer, may you not get brain. Because there's no way on earth a group will subject a group amongst an ethnic group will subject their own people to this kind of thing and brainwash them to the point where even unborn kids already have these things. Because sincerely, I think at this point, and I'm not being insulted or anything, but I think at this point it's congenital. It's something that is passed down through the genes. Like it's like a belief system. It's like a way to. It's just like it's like the ethos of the people. But the question is, how did they get it? And I'm going to get into that today. So the title, of course, is How Igbo Intellectuals Scripted the Victimhood and Supremacy Narratives. We've read a number of books on this platform. If the first one that I, was able to, that I came across that beautifully crafted a narrative of superiority and victimhood, in the same speech, was actually the one that was delivered by Azikiwe in 1949. It was a conference at Aba, the Igbo conference, where all of them gathered together, all the unions. And at the time, Azikiwe was the president of the union, and he had a very fantastic, speech. If time permits, maybe at the end of today's session, I just might read it. If not, we'll have another session where we're going to discuss it. And that, for me, is the very first document that I can say, okay, I have, where I see this, I don't know if I should call it beautiful, where it was Supremacy. It's amazing how he was able to do it. And since then, since 49, we've had different other authors and speakers somehow craft these things, and they happen to be the most educated ones amongst the Igbos. Now, the young blame them that much. Once you listen to this, they have been made to feed on this incredible diet of lies and propaganda, and that's why people behave the way they do. And hopefully with this session, we'll be able to also have more information about that. So let me read the description of the video and then we'll get into it. Many Nigerians are only just beginning to see through the blackmail, manipulation, and endless victim narratives pushed by some Igbo voices. What many don't realize is that these arguments didn't originate from the streets. The regular people repeating the same lines today are echoing what their intellectuals carefully crafted decades ago. Back in the 1960s, Igbo intellectuals boldly argued for a unitary system in Nigeria, presenting themselves as the natural rulers of the federation. Their justification that the Igbo had superior culture and civilization. Of course, no proof was ever provided, but the rhetoric stuck. To strengthen the claim, they packaged victimhood, painting the Igbo as oppressed while simultaneously asserting a right to rule perpetually. And in a masterstroke of hypocrisy, they branded every other group tribalist for resisting this arrogance. So when ordinary Igbo people today repeat the same, I'll take that again. So when ordinary Igbo people today repeat these same tired lines, should we be surprised? The script was written long ago. The question is simple. How long will we let recycled falsehoods define Nigeria's future? It is time to change the narrative. So this is a 3-part series. Here's part 1. If you notice any breaks, it will be because I'm trying to change to the next part. But please, while you're listening, to others, to make sure that they're also able to participate in today's session. All right, so here is how Igbo intellectuals scripted the victimhood and supremacy narratives. Enjoy. Oh, I'm sorry. I just discovered that this thing was not, plugged. But yeah, that is sorted now. So let's get into it. How Igbo intellectuals scripted the victimhood and supremacy narratives. Please power tap while you listen. Enjoy the session. All right. So we went on from there, talked about what happened on January 15, 1966 in Lagos, in Ibadan, and in Kaduna. And of course, nothing happened in Enugu and Bini. Anybody knows why? The reason, of course, is because those two regions were led by Igbos. Again, when you cry, oh, marginalization, they did this to me, you don't understand where it's coming from. Nobody's even marginalizing anybody. Who is not collecting an allocation in this country? Which region does not have development commission right now? Nobody's marginalizing anybody. Just that they put that lie in people's minds since. I'm just telling you what happened. So they didn't do anything in Enugu. They did nothing in Benin because, of course, they are dominated that area. And the good they wanted for Nigeria somehow did not have to happen in Enugu and Benin. Therefore, nothing happened there. And then, of course, and his 8-month pregnant wife was killed, or were killed. Rao Shudainde was also killed in Kaduna. In Lagos, Mamalari was killed, Kur Mohammed was killed, Lagema was killed, Pam was killed. These were officers from the north. And no Igbo politician was killed. No Igbo senior officer was killed. Author Negbe was killed. This is Nigeria. And according to this man, it says here, the coup was executed by and large by the Igbo, witnessed the killing of all northern Nigerian officers within reach, and of Yoruba officers suspected of being in sympathy with the Hausa Fulani elite of northern Nigeria. Moreover, no Igbo elite politician and disseminator of tribalism or sectionalism lost his life. The troops in Benin and Enugu under Igbo control refused to murder Dennis Osadebe and Michael Okpara respectively. But on the other hand, the federal prime minister and Chief Okotiebo, the Midwestern fighter against Igbo domination, were killed. Also murdered were Esther Akintola, the Premier of the West, and Amadou Bello, the Premier of Northern Nigeria. In the circumstances, the view began to gain ground that the coup was evidence that the Igbo plan for a takeover of the country was maturing. And there was the fact that the first head of the military government, Aguiyi Ironsi, surrounded himself with top Igbo civil servants as advisors. I wish I could pause, but I'm not going to do it because of time. I wish I could pause to read to you the speech that Cardinal Zogu gave on 15th January 1966 in Kaduna, in Radio Kaduna. He mentioned the people that they were after. He mentioned people that were using nepotism, who were sectionalists and tribalists, people who were collecting 10% corruption. It's so amazing that for some reason, all the Igbo politicians did not fall in this category. It's quite interesting, isn't it? Anyway, the suspicion of Igbo domination grew as Igbos within the army were promoted to the rank of officers, and a unification decree was issued in response to the minority report of only one member on Wokeji. Why is this important? Because there was a committee to discuss unification decree, and only one person said it was okay, and they promulgated that decree based on that recommendation of Wokeji. And they also promoted 18 Igbo officers in April of 1966. No Yoruba officer was promoted. 3 Northerners were promoted, but they were taken ahead of the 5 Yoruba officers who were actually qualified. Fighting that the unification decree would establish firmly Igbo control all over the country, the peoples of the North in May 1966 rose up against Igbo inhabitants in the northern region. This first of a series of spontaneous massacres of Igbos was the last straw, which persuaded a number of Igbo leaders that the dream of Igbo domination was beyond achievement, that the size of Nigeria and the factor of loyalty to the tribe, rather than to one Nigeria, were strong among the large ethnic groups in the country, that justly or unjustly, anti-Igbo feelings had risen very high in the rest of Nigeria. In the words of the academicians themselves, all the time tribalists, who drew up the argument for secession as early as May 1966, I want to read to you what Igbo intellectuals wrote in May of 1966 to support the unification decree. Are we ready? All right. This is from Bay Collections, Biafra newsletter of March 1968. These are intellectuals. Since the last event, Unification Decree, it has become crystal clear that the former leaders of the Action Group have, as predicted, joined forces with the former leaders of the NNDP. Let me explain. NNDP was formed by Nigeria National Democratic Party, the same name of the party that Robert Macaulay founded in 1923. All right? So by 66, they had now come back together again. So the Igbo intellectuals said, since the last event, that's the Unification Decree, it has become crystal clear that the former leaders of the Action Group have, as predicted, joined forces with the former leaders of the NNDP in a renewed battle against Easterners. No, it was against Igbos, not Easterners. In this respect, the Western leaders are one with the Northern leaders, who are similarly opposed to a unitary system of government in Nigeria. And all of them are anxious that the country should revert to the old federal structure, which, as everyone knows, was the principal cause of most of the woes of the First Republic. In other words, the idea of unitary system was not just something that Ironsi came up with. It's been at least 15 years in the making, in the hands of politicians. And to make matters worse, the best of the people, the creme de la creme of their society, wrote this to support it and said the people who were against unitary system did not want national unity. That's why we say when we call it Igbo and you get angry, you don't know what your elders said after that coup. Read Back unto Self by Shehu Shagari. Read what the people said, then listen to this and tell me if it was not even the intellectuals supporting this thing that they're doing. So what you see here, and by the way, if you read the Special Report Branch of April 1966, the origins of the Civil War by Nnamdi Azikiwe, they were just constituting nuisance all over the place, insulting Northerners, insulting everybody. We have the power. Then the intellectuals wrote this. So you have the people, the intellectuals, the soldiers, and the politicians. What's it on now? Everyone is complete. The politicians started it. The soldiers, officers bought into it. The intellectuals were part of it. The people celebrated it. You now come in 2025 and tell me that it was not an Igbo coup. Are you joking? So the writer says here, this is not to say that the generality of the Igbo saw themselves as seekers of dominance over the rest of Nigeria. Again, looking for, what's the word? Soft landing. Or that the Igbo leadership saw itself as exploiters of other peoples in Nigeria. The self-styled leaders and spokesmen of the Igbo people, mainly university intellectuals, argued passionately that it would be wrong. Please listen to this. This is the argument of lecturers, people who read book. We're supposed to get sense, right? I wait till them talk with this. So I beg, pay attention. The self-styled leaders and spokesmen of the Igbo people, mainly university intellectuals, argued passionately that it would be wrong to see the Igbo as grabbers of most of the offices in the country, even though they were grabbing everything. About 65% of the posts in Railway Corporation was taken over by the Igbos. 70% of Nigerian Port Authority, 70% of Nigerian Airways. They took the pool betting company. They took Yabatek, took Unilag, took UI, made sure Igbos were the VCs of both UI and Unilag. DK in UI, Njoku in Lagos. Made sure that every place was filled with it, including the canteen. Thank you for the gift. Filled everywhere. Then they are writing here that it will be wrong to see the Igbos as grabbers of most of the offices in the country. In other words, you are looking at it, but it is wrong that you are even saying that it is happening. Somebody says here, the intellectual dishonesty has not changed. I argue that it has worsened over the last 60 years. Yes. You put out a video, they'll tell you, forget about, you talk about an issue, they will leave the issue and talk about your tone. Why are you talking about it like that? Why are you talking about it? It's not a big deal. We don't want Nigeria. Forget the issue. But let's agree that your tone is wrong. You are not serious. They will police your tone. They will tell you it is wrong for you to see us as grabbers. You're literally grabbing things. Thanks for the gift. In other words, I can grab the stuff, but it would be wrong for you to see me as a grabber. Gets worse. They argued passionately that it would be wrong to see the Igbo as grabbers of most of the offices in the country. Rightly considered, they contended they deserved to hold these posts. Why? By virtue of their special talent. They ethnic groups in quote-unquote culture and civilization. Talofun kinini bread. Mbei Collections, Volume 1, Number 8, Biafra Newsletter, 1st March 1968. This is what they wrote. 1949, God has specially created the Igbo nation as a race to lead the children of Africa from the bondage of the... From what Azikiwe said in 1940, that the boys from Christ the King College in Onitsha they had exceptionally developed brains, unlike their counterparts in Lagos. Exceptionally developed brains, specially created by God, and they have superior culture and civilization. Which one? That's why I said this on Wednesday. I'm reading this intentionally. I'm reading it again today intentionally. I said what I said on Wednesday, where I was quoting Lumumba, PLO Lumumba, who was quoting Achebe. I'll still read what Achebe said, though. These kind of things that Igbo intellectuals were putting in the minds of people. This is why you discover that every single person, there will be exception. Let me put it this way. There is a rule that every single person must parrot the same ideas. There are exceptions, though. There are some Igbo people that are not like that. But I can assure you, it's a rule. This is how just about everyone thinks. We are better. Have you noticed? Let's pause a bit. Have you noticed? You have simple conversations. You hear things like, "We are better than you." You cannot have a conversation without somebody telling you that we are better than everybody. It's coming from here. The people who drum these ideas in their minds were not roadside. I mean, all due respect to roadside, I don't want to mention the work because there's dignity of labor. It's not just the average Joe walking the street. These were the intellectuals, the creme de la creme of the society. What they said here in the 60s is what people are wrong to see the Igbo as grabbers of most of the opportunity, or most of the offices in the country. Rightly considered, they contended they deserved to hold this post by virtue of their special talents. God, give me talent too now. They were superior to other, because I don't study the culture. It is well. They were the most receptive, or they were the most receptive to new ideas and the most able to assimilate them. It would be most unfair and unjust for any other people in Nigeria, particularly the Northerners, to wish to dominate Nigeria. For Northern Nigeria lacked education and culture and was never in a position to contribute to the advancement or progress of the country. Unquote. Thank you, Prof. They say that until an Igbo man is the president of Nigeria, Nigeria cannot progress. Meanwhile, there are 5 Igbo governors in the Southeast. I'm very sure it's progressing. This is what the intellectuals were saying. By the way, that was a quote. It will be unfair and unjust. What you see in there, it will be unfair and unjust. That's an emotional argument. They're trying to reach your emotion, your empathy, that place where empathy dwells. So it should be unfair and unjust for them not to be allowed to dominate everybody. That's unfair. That's unfair. Whenever you start hearing words like I feel, it's unfair, it's unjust, those words don't have anything to do with logic. It's about emotions. And most of the arguments you have today in conversations are emotional arguments. Oh, do you know what we suffered? Do you know what we went through? We have been marginalized. We have been victimized. These words, guys, this is a strategy that started in the 1940s. They perfected it. Again, as a Nigerian, as a Yoruba person, have compassion, be merciful, be a correct person, all right? Don't hate anybody, but don't be blackmailed either. Don't let people weaponize empathy, the empathy that you would never show. I will show the empathy, but they don't just want you to show the empathy, they want to weaponize it. In other words, I want you to do this, this, and this based on the fact that you have compassion. If you don't do it, that means that you don't have compassion. Do you know how many people were killed during the war? Can you count million were killed? I bet 3 million, I bet 6 million, I bet 7 million, I bet 21 million. Even though the entire region at the time, everybody together was 12.4. And Igbos were 7.4. So Igbos were 7 million, the others were 5.4 million. But somebody actually looked me in the face and told me there were 7 million Igbos who died during the war, or 6 million, or 21 million. Maybe I say they don't die in advance. May that not be our portion. Because how people go die whenever exist. When you hear these things, what does that do? It tugs at your heart. That's the point. That's the goal. Tugging at your heart. It is unjust and unfair for any other people in Nigeria, particularly the Northerners, to wish to dominate Nigeria. For Northern Nigeria lacked education and culture and was never in a position to contribute to the advancement or progress of the country. The Igbos, the Igbos saw themselves as victims of hatred and envy by other ethnic groups. They described themselves as the veritable exponents, embodiment, and vanguard of pan-Nigerianism. As exponents and teachers of the virtues of industry, cosmopolitanism, the dignity of labor, democratic process of government, and disinterested patriotism. In their opinion, the sacrifices which the Igbo had made on behalf of Nigeria were enormous. The ethnocentric Yoruba regarded the Igbo in Lagos as strangers, in spite of the fact that investment opportunities were greater in Lagos thanks to the siting in Yoruba land of the federal capital, as well as the 2 federal universities, and ports, and airports, and river ports, and seaports, and land ports, and port. The tribalism and conspiracy of the Yoruba and Hausa Fulani against the Igbo were only too clear from their monopoly of the international airports and the police training colleges they contended. In the 50s, when cocoa was booming and the East was advocating allocation on the basis of needs, the West insisted on the principle of derivation, which makes sense. If I'm producing stuff, my land, even Bible says that the husbandman will be the first partaker of the fruit. If the land generates something, the people should have. That's why we had a very interesting formula at the time. 50% goes to the region of origin, 30% goes to the DPA, the pool, 20% goes to the federal government. The East said no, it must be based on need. I've never really explained this thing, but just think about it. Think about it. When one country, see, it alone. Now they've perfected it. Tinubu is doing it with the restructuring going on. Do you know what they were talking about? Regions could generate revenue. So let's say, for Yoruba land, it was primarily cocoa. You generate money, you get your, profit and all. The revenue basically is shared in 3 places. Or, let me put it this way. They were asking that, how should we share this thing? The Igbo said, listen, you are Yoruba, Western region. You have 100 naira. Let us share the money that the Western region is making based on what the Eastern region needs and the Northern region needs. Think about it. Monkey go walk, banana go chop. So can you come and walk, banana go chop? No. Can you come and walk, monkey they chop banana or something like that? You get the point. So we would distribute the money based on needs. In other words, what do we need in the Eastern region? You are in the West now. You already have cocoa house. You're already building cocoa house. You're building all these things. You have all these things now. We need stuff in our own region. The money they're making from your region should also be used to develop our region. That's what needs-based means. Again, just to explain. Monkey they walk, baboon they chop. God bless you. Oh no, they were not in federal government at this time. This was in the 50s. The West was booming. So they said, oh, that money that the West is making, let them take part of that money to develop the East. You think all these things started with Hausa, Fulani, oh, they are bad people, Okay. Those ones, they learned lesson, but those guys are smart. You know how you learn something, and how do it, the person will teach you, go, they look at you, say, Oga now. So we're going to share it based on it. So if you need university, you can take the money from the East to develop that place. But the West said the best way to do it is derivation, which is what we are still using today. It's just that we've changed the ratio. Then it was 532. Of every 100%, of every 100 naira, 50% goes to the Western region. 30% is shared amongst all the regions, including the Western region. Then 20% goes to federal government to take care of, army, customs, and things like that. What we're doing right now is this: 13% goes to the state of origin of the resources. 13% goes. Then they now take the remaining and now create federal allocation based on that. Still share part of it to the state. That derivation thing was what we agreed with. That's the Rassman proposal. The point I'm trying to make is that when the Western region had that, Prof, you're right. Not. So let me read something. Northerners have the least blame in the malaise of Nigeria. The Eastern leaders teach them. They taught them. The Eastern leaders taught the Northerners. That's why I'm not saying Northerners are only or they've not done anything wrong. Nobody perfect. Nobody. But they learned it. They learned unitary from the East. They learned allocation from the East, dependence on allocation. They learned it from the East. As soon as crude oil was discovered, the East changed. Said we don't want it to be based on needs anymore. We want it based on derivation. Before they had that opportunity, they wanted it based on needs. In other words, you make money in your region, let them take part of it to come and build my region. But as soon as I begin to make money in my region, I say, no, it was based on derivation because after all, I'm making money in my region. So what do you see there? There's inconsistency. And a few years after that thing was discovered, do you know what they started saying in 1963? They were going to secede. Why? Because there was oil. And that's why I say, when you listen to Chimamanda say that the federal government was fighting Biafra because of oil, the question you should be asking her is this: why was because of oil, and because of land, and because of access to the sea? Those are the three reasons, nothing else. Because none of those three things happen to be in Igbo land. I'm not saying Igbo land does not have any fertile land at all. It's just that it's about 30% of all revenue that came into the Eastern region at the time, as far as agriculture was concerned. About 30, just a little over 30% came from the Eastern from Igbo land. More than 60% came out of minorities, especially present-day Cross River and Akwa Ibom State, and parts of, towards Ogoja, towards Abakaliki. The point is, selfishness is a money. May God save us. Somebody said I should repeat what I said. I'm not going to repeat everything, but I'll just quickly say, I said that when the Western region was making money from cocoa in the 50s, and we're talking about allocation. There was a proposal by Rassman, like a committee. They come up with the 50-30-20 allocation formula. In other words, it's based on derivation. If you produce something in your land, you get 50% of that thing, which I think is the at least let's have that in Nigeria. Let's have that in Nigeria. Did cocoa only grow in the West? Yes. Much later, though, Michael Okpara traveled to Ibadan to get seedlings and then planted in Ogoja. So he also tried it in Ogoja. But Western region is a major base of cocoa in Nigeria. It could be about, it's not about, I'm just using cocoa as an example, though. In the north, it will be cotton, it will be groundnuts, right? In the east, it will be palm oil. And again, like I said, more than 64% of agricultural revenue in the eastern region came from the eastern minorities, not in Igbo land. And the oil also came from eastern minorities in present-day Rivers, the Ogoni, the people in Bayelsa, the people in Oloberi, and Ogoni. That's where the oil came from, not in Igbo land. So why did they want Biafra? And why is they shouting about 40 states today? It's because of the resources of other people. So it could be palm oil, it could be anything. But the point is that whatever you made, you get 50% from that thing. Then 30% will be put in a pool, a distributable pool for all of you. So you're going to share. So you have 30%, you have 3 regions, so you can share 10-10-10. Okay? Then you now have 20 allocated to the federal government, and they use that for army, customs, and things like that. You could also, and it's revenues beyond agriculture. There's also excise duties and everything. That federal government makes all of that money. But as soon as they discovered oil in commercial quantity, the East changed and said no. So why do we not want Nigeria? Somebody says, but this same Igbo land sent tax to the center to subsidize the north. I be this a lie too. There's something you have to know in history, Joshua Ogbuka, timeline. At what point in history did that happen? So that time frame is what helps you understand what I'm talking about now. That was something happened in 1914, 1912, 13, 14. Does not mean it happened in 1950s. Yes, it is true that the government, in fact, I don't want to change, no. Let me just, I've already said it. The amalgamation in 1914 was also one of the reasons, of course, was that the government was subsidizing the North with money from the South. And that's not because the North was not making money. It was because the North was spending all this, they have salary, they have West African front North. So they needed more money, so they got it from the South. But that was in the early days. I'm talking 1950s. Timeline is very important, or else we'll just be all over the place. In the 1950s, the East was not making as much. They wanted things to be based on needs. The West said derivation is the most sensible thing. The East said no. If you make 100 naira and I need 60 naira in the East, I must be able to get that 60 naira because I'm in one Nigeria. What are brothers for? But as soon as they found oil in Oloibiri, the East changed and said, no, we don't want needs again. It has to be based on derivation. Our selfishness. But let's continue. In the 50s, when cocoa was booming and the East was advocating allocation on the basis of needs, the West insisted on the principle of derivation. But immediately mineral oil, by the way, mineral oil is crude oil. Immediately mineral oil was discovered in commercial quantities in the East. quote, a large amount of the money derived. This is what they said, though. This is what the Igbo intellectual said. A large amount of the money derived from this mineral oil has been shared by the West as well as other parts of the country. Now they are angry that the government is sharing part of the money. Again, it was still derivation, by the way. It wasn't needs, it was still derivation. They will still get the bulk of it, but the fact that they're even sharing that 30% in that distributable pool is anathema to the Igbo intellectual. So he says since they discovered this oil, now they're giving, everybody is now collecting money from this oil, our oil. Whether your papa backyard, our oil. Are developing Nigeria with our oil. You have not seen a drop in your life. If a South man talks like that, shame me, I will understand. Somebody came in the last time and said, after all, they're also contributing oil. Sincerely, with all due respect, I hate it when people say things like that. I hate it. I don't use the word hate frivolously, but it's nauseating. Abia, Anambra, and Imo. One produces 1.25%. 1.2% of Nigeria's crude oil. I didn't say 10.2. I didn't say 100. I said 1.2. One produces 0.75%. And the other one produces 0.2%. In the southeast, Anambra, Abia, and Imo. 1.7, 0.75, 0.2. If you put the three together, do you know, and let me ask people, a lot of us do not know, even me, I laugh because we never talk about it. Lagos is an oil producing state, but it's not even a major oil producing state. Ondo is an oil producing state that has more oil than Lagos and Edo State. Edo is about 2.2, 2.3 thereabout. But Lagos has more oil. Lagos has more oil than Anambra, Imo, and Abia put together. It's about 2.4. You put everything you have in the southeast together, it's just about 2.1%. And if you, as three of you together, creating 2.2%, if you are shouting, so what should Ẹkáàbọ now say? What should Rivers say? What should Bayelsa say? And Delta. Those are the big four. Those are the big four. They now have Ondo with more than 4%. What should Ondo say? What should Lagos say? What should Edo say? So when you say things like, you are using my money of oil, I'm like, which oil? By the way, you can fact check these things, though. I would have wanted to read it, but I don't want to change the topic. But everything I just said right now, please feel free to fact check. The Kogi Man on YouTube, good evening, my brother. Thank you for being here. Kubo, thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. He says Chimamanda was also claiming 13 states for the Igbos. She should go and collect it now. People move to a particular place, they'll settle there. It's not their state. It's not indigenous. That's why you notice that when they talk about it, they don't. Have you ever heard anything like Hausa community in Yoruba land? Or Hausa community in your state? Hausa community in Kogi state? Once you hear clinical community, it means that they are settlers. I saw the video that Chimamanda was that Kubu is referring to. The Igbo community in Kinikon State. You are using the word community. Indigenous people don't use that word community. It's their town. And just because you moved somewhere 70 years ago and you were given a place to stay, does not mean that you are now owners of that place. They will reject you. They'll tell you that you are customary tenants. I like Yoruba people, they can do that thing. Jesus Christ. It has happened before, by the way. Even amongst us as Yoruba people, they'll tell you are customary tenant. Don't come and claim Kiniko here. Let's get back into this. What of Bakassi? Osikid, what does Bakassi have to do with you? You are nowhere close to Bakassi. I hope you know. You are nowhere close to where Bakassi is. You're talking Bakassi, you're talking about people like folks in Cross River and Akwa Ibom State. I want to and Oron, those people in Cross River. What did Bakassi connect with your people? Have you whole land there too? Don't go develop that place too. Hey, Chineke. Anyway, let's go back to this. Oh, yes, they claim they own Bakassi. Eh. Well, if the owners of the land give it to them, well, who am I? So it says here, in the 50s when cocoa was booming and the East was advocating allocation on the basis of needs, the West insisted on the principle of derivation. But immediately mineral oil was discovered in commercial quantities in the East, quote, a large amount of the money derived from this mineral oil has been shared by the West as well as other parts of the country, unquote. Let's continue with what the Igbos now said, or the Igbo intellectuals now said. In the 50s, when cocoa was booming and the East was advocating allocation on the basis of needs, the West insisted on the principle of derivation. But immediately mineral oil was discovered in commercial quantities in the East, quote, a large amount of the money derived from this mineral oil has been shared by the West as well as other parts of the country, unquote. Let's continue with what the Igbos now said, or the Igbo intellectuals now said. Considering all this, one can easily understand the attitude of the North and West to the proposals of the military regime for the unification of the country. These were intellectuals pushing hard for why all of us must support Iransi because it won't unify Nigeria. He said, because they're already sharing all this oil money. Considering all this, one can easily understand the attitude of the North and West to the proposals of the military regime for the unification of the country. The North and the West want to continue to enjoy the resources of the East, while treating the Easterner as a stranger in those places. That is why they want to revert to the old form of the Federation, which would give them political power to continue to persecute the Easterner, although they fully realize that the human and economic resources of the East constitute something of the linchpin of the economy of Nigeria. This is a clear case of dishonesty and hypocrisy, which the Easterner can no longer tolerate. Oh, God. Before I read this book, I used to wonder why people were a certain way. I still ask the question, Sha. I say, why are you like this? But sincerely, I get it. So they said, you Westerners and Northerners, you are eating our money, our oil money. And you are calling us strangers in your land. This is a clear case of dishonesty and hypocrisy, which the Easterner can no longer tolerate. The Easterners did their best to teach the rest of the country how to get above the sentiment of tribalism. Hence, in the early months of 1966, take a listen to this, please pay attention. In the early months of 1966, scholarships were thrown open to all Nigerians living in the region. Moreover, the government of Odumegwu Ojukwu expunged from all government forms the requirement of stating one's tribal. That's a very good thing. Let's clap for him. No, we can't clap for him. We have to finish reading this thing. You will hear statements from our cortex. Let's celebrate Ojukwu. He removed tribalism. He said, you don't have to write Yoruba inside the form in the East. You'll be happy, Abi. Let's continue reading. Don't celebrate yet. The government of Odumegwu Ojukwu expunged from all government forms the requirement of stating one's tribal origin in application for employment, scholarships, and so on. In other words, the curse of tribalism had been removed from the region, and all Nigerians in the East were to be treated as equal with equal opportunities. Fantastic. No. Why? But rather than appreciate the high values and virtues which the Easterners were inculcating, it is clear from the lack of reciprocity on the part of other leaders, military and civil, in the country, that the East is wasting its resources in trying to achieve the impossible. What do you see here? Two things. Number one, if you have your name as Busuyoris, Ade Busuyi, you think because I'm not writing Yoruba that you don't know where I'm from. So you really think that if you say, what's your name? Chloe, what's my name? Chloe, Ade Busuyi, you're not be like, I don't even know where that person is from. I am detribalized. I can't.
The second part is the real issue. The second part speaks to the intent of the people that created that policy. What was the intent? That intent is what is inside what the Igbo intellectuals were complaining about. I read it earlier. I'll read it again. They said that they have expunged tribalism from Nigeria because you could fill forms for employment or scholarship without having to add your tribal origin. Forget the fact that, oh, there is a name that is sounding Yoruba sounding name. Oh, that doesn't matter. But this is the real issue. They said, rather than appreciate the high values and virtues which the Easterners were inculcating, it is clear from the lack of reciprocity on the part of other leaders. In other words, they did this for reciprocity purposes. They did not remove tribal names or tribal origin from forms because of altruism. It was for reciprocity. In other words, if we did it for your people in my region, do it for my people in your region. Here is the question. How many of my people are in your region? How many of your people are in my region? This is how you see the stupidity in all this liberal, detribalized nonsense. Oh, you don't have to fill a form. My people, you don't have as many opportunities in your region. So you have, like I gave the example the other day, of 100 people from my region, maybe 30 decide to leave the region. 20 are in the north. All right, or 15 are in the north. Let's say another 10 are in the Midwest, and then 5 are in your region. So the remaining 70 are at home. Listen to this, because this is actually how Yoruba is. We travel, but we don't say there are opportunities at home. We travel, we go everywhere, but the numbers not like that. Okay. So of the 100, 70 are in Yoruba land, 15 are in the north, 10 are in the Midwest, especially because of Benin, our connection Benin and Delta. And then you now have 5 in Igbo land, in the eastern region. Mostly Port Harcourt. Some Lenugu. You have 100 people. 85% of your people are everywhere else but home. So if you give 5%, so over fee kong back on lower me near. Ma fee kong back on lower me. So your own 85% are out of your region. My own, and of the 85%, 50 are in the west, 30 are in the north, 5 in the Midwest. Now 5% of my people are in your place, 50% of your people are in my place. So you expect me to reciprocate by removing tribe of origin in my region for 50% of your people in my space? But your people are always moving to my space. There are more opportunities here than at home, in your own home. So none of this was done because we were trying to build a great Nigeria. It was done because you were trying to create opportunities for your own people in other people's regions. So when you discover that there was no reciprocity, you decided to scrap it, which means that the policy was not based on any altruism or unity or development or whatever, national development. It had nothing to do with those things. It was selfish. Rather than appreciate the high values and virtues which the Easterners were inculcating, it is clear from the lack of reciprocity on the part of other leaders, military and civil, in the country, that the East is wasting its resources in trying to achieve the impossible. As a matter of fact, these gestures made by the East have been widely interpreted in other parts of the country as evidence of its ardent desire for national unity, which the others do not really want. As how? That's why I said, every time you speak in this country, when you hear national unity, don't run, no. Like fella said, run. Unity call. Let me not mention the ethnic group. I like silent people just say what they want. It's not the 1965. It has not ended. The spirit is alive. That's the point. What we are doing is we are pushing back against that evil spirit from the evil forest. Someone says, because spirit does not die. Yes. Ideas don't die. Energy doesn't die. You can only repurpose those things. You can only convert energy. You can't kill it. That thing is still there. Until they choose to convert it, you must keep pushing back. And you can't push back if you are ignorant, which is why we're having this conversation. Not because some people are demons or their ethnic group is bad. That's not the point. It's just that guys, we've talked about it over and over again. Certain people have this thing where it's like you're seeing, like I said, Nigerian political experience is a deja vu. Our news is deja vu. Sometimes our history is even more current than the news. Right? And so you have to be armed with knowledge, okay? So they said here that this thing that we have done, it shows that other people don't want national unity. Again, you cannot have national unity when there is no nation. Don't leave me. You cannot have national unity when there is no nation. It's a country of many nations. Do you have national unity among your own ethnic nation? Yoruba is a nation. Yoruba people cannot be bickering amongst ourselves and be telling Nigeria, unite or we must unite. The nation to unite is Yoruba nation, Igbo nation, Hausa nation, Ibibio nation. Everybody's united, Abi. Okay, all of us now, what do we want to work on? Purpose. Unity of purpose. We want to work on this. We now work together. Not all these things, let's unite. Based on what? So all this nonsense they're doing is for national unity. But as soon as you did not do what they did in their region, they'll stop those things. Which means that it was never for altruism to begin with. By sheer ability, only by sheer ability, they said, individual Igbos had attained very high positions in the federal civil service. It is a lie. Again, let me advertise Achebe Meritocracy or Nepotism. It's a video on Busuyori's YouTube channel. Please check it out. They filled those high positions by sheer nepotism, not sheer ability. By sheer ability is a lie. Individual Igbos have attained very high positions in the federal civil service, in universities, and in corporations. But these are displeased the Northerners and Westerners who did not want the Igbos to be more than stewards, casual laborers, and petty traders. The Northerners and Westerners would tolerate a united Nigeria only if the Igbo would become second-rate citizens. They were tired of the Eastern domination scandal. And it was always Igbo domination scandal or Igbo domination, and they say it because of a statement that was made in 1945, which is proof of a plan that was hatched in 1944, which was to rule the federation in perpetuity. They didn't make it up. It's real, and it was not Eastern. They use this word Eastern anytime. Let me tell you what the Igbos have done. By the way, if you are an Igbo here, again, it's not against you. I'm just telling you how Nigerian politics has worked. And if you buy into it, then it's against you. But if you don't buy into it, just be listening and be blessed. When the Igbos want to take over, they'll say they want to take over. When you push back, they'll say Eastern region, in order to have the other Easterners with them. When they want to fight Hausa Fulani, they'll talk about the South. In 1967, the message was Southern unity. So that you can get the Yoruba people to be on your side. So it went from Igbo to Eastern to Southern. And I remember a few days ago, Prof is here, I'm sure he remembers this. A few years ago, they said they were doing Southern Alliance. I mean, I was just wondering, like, is it that we don't understand nothing? In other words, the only time we unite is when we want to fight the North. What's that? The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I don't do that kind of thing personally. Why? As soon as we are done with that enemy, this enemy that I'm calling my friend will begin to now show me Pepe. Fulani is the worst thing. Fulani have issues. Forget it. Fulanis, they have their own issues. And we've talked about it before. But don't come and become my friend because you want to fight a Fulani. Don't come and say, oh, somebody, God bless you, Abiodun. Thank you. Everyone elevated the conversation. Thank you for that. So when you want to fight everybody, number one, when you start, is actually Igbo agenda. When people push back and you want to fight everybody in Nigeria, it becomes Eastern. So you include the Ibibio, the South, people in South, say all of us are Eastern. When you now want to fight the North, it is Southern unity. When you want to fight Ghana, like Abiodun wrote here, it becomes Nigerian unity. Oh, they hate Nigeria and Ghana. They don't hate Nigeria and Ghana. Oh, they are fighting Nigerians in Ghana. They are not fighting Nigerians in Ghana. They have mentioned the exact group they are fighting. There's no Nigerian issue in Ghana. We can eat jollof, but Nigerian jollof is better, but you get the point. We can have fun. There's no fight between Nigeria and Ghana. They have mentioned the group they have issues with. He's always hiding under something, just to be able to deflect. And say, they are fighting all of us, they're not fighting me. Go and fight your fight. You cannot be going around, you know get mama, you can't go carry saw for your back. Who go help you treat them? Come bring her, come my house. Say we are one Nigeria. Okay. Wait till they look for where you go, they carry wound for back. We'll go back to the book, I beg. This is my pigeon. I think it's getting better. It's getting better. I've spoken more pigeon on these live sessions than any other time in my life. And I've been around for a little bit, but it is well. Let's get back into this. So they said the Northerners and the Westerners would tolerate a united Nigeria only if the Igbo would become second-rate citizens, which people still talk about today, which I don't believe, by the way. I don't think Igbo people are second-class citizens. I believe they have a right. I believe that they have a right to, they are citizens just like every other group, but they are not better than any other group. That is what I think they hate. Why? Because of what they wrote. They said they are more civilized and more cultured, and they have superior abilities than other groups. They have superior talent. How can you be putting yourself on Eshianyo? In other words, you they ride cockroach. They tell yourself, say, na horse. Which culture? Which culture is superior, I beg? Hey, let me tell you something. If you're always shouting that you're second class, maybe it's your mind. Because I don't believe that any group is second class in Nigeria. I don't think so. Use that argument because, again, it's about appeal to the emotions. You appeal to people's emotion. We are second-class citizens. Look at us. You have to play the victim. You know why that thing does not work on me? Since the day I read that 1947 paper, I read it here before. Since the day I read that 1947 paper document written by Sir Arthur Richards, since that day, I discovered that this thing is a strategy. Appeal to pity, thank you. It's a strategy. You know what Arthur Richards said in 1947? He said the Eastern region clamor for more of everything, but they generate the least revenue in Nigeria. 1947. But they clamor for more and more of everything. Those are his words. They clamor for more and more of everything. They pay the least taxes, generate the least revenue, but clamor for more and more of everything. And just as if Azikiwe heard what he said and he took it as a call from the Lord, by 49, he began to use that victimhood thing. He said, we are the victim of this, we are victim here, they've not allowed us to do this, they don't want to give us this. Oga. It's a strategy, it's not the reality. In other words, you can build Dubai in the Southeast today. The average Southeasterner will still tell you they are marginalizing him. Even in 2025, the entire southeastern part of Nigeria, what they contributed to the VAT pool 2024 and even the first half of this year is less than ×2 of what Oyo State itself alone generated. Oyo State generated more than 200% of what the Southeast generated this year. What if I told you that in the very heart of Boko Haram, Northeast generated more VAT than Southeast. But we are using their money to develop Nigeria. How can Boko Haram infested, because they supposed to remove those people from that place, how can that place be generating more money than Southeast? And Southeast is claiming to be superior to every other group, but they don't want to be second class. Let me tell you what second class means in the Southeast. Second class means equality. First class means domination. I must be able to do anything I want to do in your region. So they said the Northerners and Westerners would tolerate a united Nigeria only if the Igbo would become second-rate citizens. They were tired of the Eastern domination scandal. It was Igbo domination scandal, by the way. And having reached the limits of human endurance, were convinced that it would not be in their interest to remain in the Federation. They had no choice but ask to break away from the rest of the country and look for their own destiny as a separate country. That was the basis for secession. Whilst the academicians were pushing Odumeko Ojukwu to consider taking Eastern Nigeria out of the Federation, the tribal factor continued to operate within the Nigerian army. The ethnic tension became essentially one between the North and the East, particularly between the Hausa Fulani and the Igbo, as they had to use the brawn rather than the brain, the gun being the Packer pen. They moved towards each other on 29 July with the Hausa Fulani gaining the upper hand and therefore to an extent avenging 15 January 1966. So this was when everywhere scattered. All right, counter coup, northern counter coup. Again, the North doesn't complain when we say northern counter coup, July 29, 1966. That is what history has taught us. It was an Igbo coup. It was a northern counter coup. May God give you understanding. Amen. Whilst the academicians were pushing Odumeko Ojukwu to consider taking Eastern Nigeria out of the Federation, the tribal factor continued to operate within the Nigerian army. The ethnic tension became essentially one between the North and the East, particularly between the Hausa Fulani and the Igbo, as they had to use the brawn rather than the brain, the gun being the Packer pen. They moved towards each other on 29 July with the Hausa Fulani gaining the upper hand and therefore to an extent avenging 15 January 1966. So this was when everywhere scattered. All right, counter coup, northern counter coup. Again, the North doesn't complain when we say northern counter coup, July 29, 1966. Igbo coup of January 15, 1966. That is what history has taught us. It was an Igbo coup. It was a northern counter coup. Yakubu Gowon becomes the ADO conference. At the ADO conference, the northern delegation wanted to break Nigeria because originally when they planned that coup, they actually wanted to get out of Nigeria. That's why they called it Araba. The concept of Araba really was to secede. They wanted to have their own northern region, but they were persuaded not to break away by the Attorney General of Nigeria, or the Federation, the High Commissioner, the British High Commissioner, the American Ambassador, and also the senior civil servants of northern origin. They were able to persuade Murtala Mohammed, Tiwadan Juma, all of them, like, don't break away and everything. So they put the more malleable, amenable person, Yakubu Gowon, in power. And Yakubu Gowon did something. By the way, I should say this. Papa went to prison in 1962. He wrote a book that was published much later called My March Through Prison. In that book, his letter to Ironsi is in that book where he asks for a pardon. Ironsi was there for 6 months. He did nothing. Gowon got there 1st August 1966. By 12th August 1966, Papa was out of prison. 11 days. And in case you are one of those people who carry the propaganda, Ojukwu had nothing to do with it. The only person who knew how Ojukwu has something to do with it was Ojukwu, because all the things that Ojukwu did to release Awolowo happened in his own imagination. It didn't happen in reality. 11 days. I know you're going to say that now. They said Ojukwu released. Even Ojukwu himself said he did it. He said it in a Boston interview in 2002. Just nonsense. And I thank God that not only do we have the Gazette from August 1966, we also have the video of Papa being received by Gowon. And we also have books, not by the government now, by different authors, whether foreign or local, that tell us exactly what happened. If you read John de St. John, Nigerian Civil War, or you read Crisis and Conflict in Nigeria by A.H.M. Green, or you read A Break in the Silence by F. Adeton Wogunsheye, everybody knows exactly who did this Baba, apart from people in Igbo land. May God bless them and help them. So Gowon released him, and then in September, he constituted something called the Ad hoc Conference. And the North wanted to secede. We talked about all of this before, and we're going to now continue from here now. So they talked about, let me just read to you what the Northern delegates asked for. By the way, this was the same conference that Ojukwu's people first bombed Lagos. They don't tell us these things, but it's the truth. September 1966, Ojukwu bombed Lagos and bombed Ore. That was the place called Federal Palace Hotel. It's still there. What the Northern delegation declared at the conference. They said the new Nigeria shall comprise a number of autonomous states. Number two, the autonomous states of Nigeria, that is to say Northern Nigeria, Eastern Nigeria, Western Nigeria, I'm talking very fast. The autonomous states, number two, the autonomous states of Nigeria, that is to say the Northern Nigeria, Eastern Nigeria, Western Nigeria, Midwestern Nigeria, or by whatever name they may choose to be called later, and such other states as may be formed subsequently, should agree to enter a union. This was before Aburi. Aburi was in January 4 and 5, 67. This was September 66. They come to tell you, Ojukwu gave us Aburi. Ojukwu did nothing. You guys are just unlucky with the kind of people who have led your people, man. Even when Ojukwu got what he asked for, he still said no. Me go ready. We'll talk about decree number 8. Please check the video on YouTube. How Ojukwu rejected Aburi. It's on YouTube channel, Busrio Race. Ojukwu rejected Aburi. Well, even before he came up with that idea, the North also wanted autonomous states. And they said the powers of the central executive shall be delegated by the component states, except that powers connected with external or foreign affairs, immigration, can be unilaterally withdrawn by the state government. Number 3, any member state of the union should reserve the right to secede completely and unilaterally from the union. This was in 1966. The Northern delegates also wanted to be able to secede. So they said tribalism was incandescently crystallized during the Civil War when the intellectuals and top civil servants used effective facilities. When they say effective facilities, they're talking about communication, effective communication, to get the world to know that the rest of us in Nigeria are tribalists. People still believe that today, especially folks from the Southeast. May God heal you. May God heal your land, because you need it. They were the intellectuals and top civil servants used efficient facilities to inform the outside world that the rest of Nigerians were tribalists, and when the Biafrans were fed on the worst possible hatred of Nigerians. The history of Nigeria was completely rewritten, and in that new chronicle, the Igbo were innocent and the rest of Nigerians criminals. Tribalism crystallized into racism, in which the Igbo was persuaded to see himself as an embodiment of the virtues that had eluded other Nigerians. The crisis, it was argued, was deep-rooted in the past and had been inspired by the unabated and ever-increasing hostility of the rest of the Nigerian community for the Igbo ever since the British government imposed the British Raj on Nigeria. The Igbo man, the incarnation of all virtues, had been the object of envy by the rest of the Nigerian community, who were much less gifted in spiritual and human talents. Hey, yeah. The Igbo man was the industrious, enterprising businessman whose commercial ability was used to build up the economy of the country outside the fatherland. He was the most genuine Christian and the arch rejecter of Islam, which he knew before the colonial era could not humanize and civilize the Nigerian to the best level. He was the most zealous patron of Western-style education and consequently the inheritor of the virtues which this character molding and refiner of manners could confer on anybody. This skill he had put at the disposal of the rest of Nigeria in the civil service, in the press, and in the nationalist movement. And aware of the consolation of independence as the open sesame to the emergence of the Nigerian as a man, he had used his pen as well as his voice to lead the nationalist struggle, believing that a better breed of man would emerge in the Nigerian-wise community. He had been the vanguard of pan-Nigerianism and the decrier of tribalism and sectionalism. However, the Igbo man was hated by the rest of Nigeria, who were either incapable of appreciating these virtues or were made to hate him by the British imperialists, who so hated the progress of Africans that they did not want Nigerians to be infected with such attributes that the Igbo had acquired and were displaying. The result was that hostility toward the Igbo gathered momentum and culminated in the massacres of 1966, which pushed them as a rejected people out of the Federation. That arrant nonsense is a quote from Chinua Achebe. It was an address that Chinua Achebe made to the Netherlands press, 28th August 1968. The best of everything. We are hated. They hate us. That's what massacres happen. No mention of everything that we have been talking about since. The plan to dominate, the actions that actually, was being carried out or were being carried out to dominate different regions, the East first, the Northern Civil Service, the Midwest, and then the West. East was already in the pocket. No mention of any of those things. No mention of the Unification Decree. No. We did not do anything wrong. We are the best of all mankind. Look at these brutes. These savages just came and fought us. And we're trying to even help them by making this thing available to them in the civil service, in the press, in the universities. We're trying to help them. Look at these people. They're very naive. Guys, I played a video. It was last week of a man in the UK who said the exact same words. He said the Igbos were too advanced for Nigeria. I don't know if you remember that video. If I find it, I'll play it when I put this video out. He said they were too advanced for Nigeria. The Nigerians then were ingrates and brutes, incapable of behaving like the Igbo race as civilized human beings. They were unabashed perpetrators of inhumanity of man to man, people from whom the paragon Biafrans should flee in order to found a new state in which the qualities of the right-thinking man will be exemplified. In the opinion of the articulate Biafrans, all of them academicians and many of them alumni of University of Ibadan, no worse people than Nigerians could be found in the world. The Nigerians were murderers, committed to a program of total elimination of the Igbo race. In order to achieve this end, the Nigerian troops invaded Biafra. These bloodthirsty vandals were hankering after Biafran ladies, whom they were to infect with a specially devastating disease called Bonny Special. The Nigerian troops were efficient murderers of every Igbo man or woman, young or old, able or ill, whom they captured. The Nigerian leadership was made up of a pack of criminals, never-do-wells, and unreliable, shifty characters who have established a record of incompetence, ineffectiveness, inhumanity, unobjectivity, illegality, unpopularity, and abuse of office. General Gowon was a Christian humbug. Say that again. General Gowon was a Christian humbug and leader of a jihad that aimed at Islamization of all Biafran children, killing all Biafrans above the age of 5, and one of the murderers of his benefactor, Guyon. He was a Christian leading a jihad. Was a Christian leading a jihad. Let me tell you one for instance, I did not tell you last time. You read this book, Ojuku's Rebellion and World Opinion, by Nebo Graham Douglas. Nebo Graham Douglas wrote this book in 1968. He was the Attorney General of the Eastern Region. He worked with Odumegwu Ojukwu before he resigned. During a conversation with Ojukwu, Ojukwu told him that Gowon would not fight because he's a Christian. When he then chose to fight, suddenly he's now leading the jihad, but he's still a Christian. And some people actually believe this nonsense. You don't see the contradictions for some weird reason. You don't see that these two things don't make sense. Is a Christian leading a jihad? How? You know why? Because when this whole thing started, Ojukwu said he's not going to fight because he's a Christian. As soon as we began to fight, you have to find something else to say, oh, he's listening to jihad. That's why I've told people, I've said it several times. Listen, I'm not saying people don't have Islamization agenda. But if you're a Christian, especially Yoruba, and you have allowed these people to use Islamization to corner you, you have to think straight. They used Islamization agenda in 1966. The coup was because of the Islamization agenda. Do you know that? Read the book by Ben Bule, Nigeria's 5 Majors. It was Islamization. Oh, they're going to Islamize Nigeria. Bello had already brought in ammunition from outside. They're going to bring in people from the Sahel. There is Ademile working with him. They're going to turn everybody to Muslims. 66. 67, they are still using that thing. 68, in other words, 68. The reason for the war was because they want to Islamize Igbo land. 2025. Oh, Ashewaju Boyame Tinubu is Muslim ticket. They're going to Islamize Nigeria. You think you actually went to school and you believe that thing? The 2011, it was Buhari was going to Islamize Nigeria. I'm not saying nobody has plans for Nigeria. I'm not saying they don't want to Islamize Nigeria. That's not my point. My point is just that it seems like this is more like a talking point that you use against a particular region in Nigeria. Oh, they're an empire. To make matters worse, it's a Christian who is going to lead the jihad. It's a Christian leading the jihad. And then they said it was General Gowon was a Christian humbug and leader of a jihad that aimed at Islamization of all Biafran children, killing all Biafrans above the age of 5. Excuse me. He's going to kill all Biafrans above the age of 5, and one of the murderers of his benefactor, Guyon. He didn't even know about that coup. Well, he knew about the coup, but was not even one of the planners of the coup. Gowon knew about the coup, but he was not one of the planners of the coup. And he was not one of the executors of the coup. He was just chilling. He didn't plan it. He didn't execute it. Now they say he's the killer of his benefactor. How is Ironsi Gowon's benefactor? Ironsi that on 15th January 1966, around 5 a.m., Ironsi was still shaking in his boots, telling the officers not to chase the coup plotters until 7 a.m., even though they already had a 2-hour head start. The person who said, "You got to go right now," is Gowon. Told the officers, told them, "I'm giving you guys 15 minutes. Get ready, get dressed up, we're leaving." That was go on because it was the biography of a soldier statesman by J. Isawa Laiko. Go on said, when did this thing happen? They said 3 a.m. It's 5 a.m. So why is Oga saying they should give them another 2 hours so they can get to where they were going? And believe it or not, it was in that period that Ifajuna and Okafor escaped, and they found Ifajuna, and they were wondering why was he in Enugu. He wasn't trying to kill anybody. He was looking for refuge. So why did they allow that man to go and not make any? That's why I tell people, oh, university did not send anybody after anybody. Also, was just chilling. So calling Gowon the murderer of his benefactor is nonsense. Now we get to the crazy part. His chief lieutenant, or lieutenant, depending on the country you live in, the chief lieutenant was Chief Obafemi Awolowo, an arch-tribalist, a narrow-minded and parochial, a notoriously spineless opportunist with an all-consuming ambition and a particular obsession to realize a self-inspired delusion to become Prime Minister of Nigeria, and expertise in the embezzlement of public funds, which could be traced right through his career. Last time I said I was not going to speak about it. Let's not speak about it because of time. Everything they wrote here is describing themselves, their fathers, and their leaders. And I say it again, everything they wrote here is actually describing their fathers, their leaders, all their leaders. Nobody speaks about I will like this. I will not collect. And that's the only thing you collect for today. And this is spirit that people still carry about. This spirit that people, this is actually writing rubbish. Oh. That's why some people's memory, I won't mention their names, some people's memories are cursed. Because you cannot have this venom. By the way, when you read two of his terrible books, I mean, the fictions are good. But all those prose, nonsense. When he wrote about this book, The Trouble with Nigeria, and the nonsense that guys, I'm not sorry for what I'm about to say right now. It's a nonsense. The last nonsense he wrote, there was a country. There is no way a young Igbo person will read that book and will think good of Nigeria or of Yoruba people or of Hausa people. You'll be hating everybody. I don't say this because of him. I say because of the readers. I read that book. I had to ask myself, like, is this? When this man wrote this book, did he see the contradiction in the book himself? Did he see this contradiction? It was in that book that I first saw that a person is fighting a war, but they can have access to play things. It was the fault of Nigeria. He blamed everybody, propaganda till death. How would young people read that book and want to have a better Nigeria? Please tell me. If you have not read the book, I don't even think you should read it, but you can read it so you can understand how people think. A young person fresh from university or just fresh from high school reads that book, hates Nigeria forever, hates Yoruba forever. But you know what he has done in that book? He will put it in your mouth that Yoruba people hate me, Yoruba people hate me, Nigerians hate me. That's what they will be saying. But in reality, you are the one who hates everybody. And it's not your fault. It's because of the materials you've been exposed to. I've read his books. Terrible stuff. Terrible. Well, things fall apart is good. Story books are good apart from Man of the People, because that one is not story. He was telling us about a coup before it happened. He published that book in January of 66. The coup happened on 15th, that same month of 66. Then he said the book was prophetic. Foul. But a conceited and undisciplined character who from youth has been in the center of crimes against law and order. It should be repeated that no ethnic group in Nigeria can justifiably throw stone at the Igbo. The other ethnic groups did not exploit the tribal factor as a defense mechanism or preach the gospel of hatred of other ethnic groups or reduce Nigerian history to the denominator of tribalism or descend to the extreme form of racism as the Igbo intellectuals did in the cause of the Civil War. But that does not mean that other ethnic groups have less tribal instincts than the Igbo. I think it would even be wrong to deny tribal instinct. I don't even like the word tribal, because when the Scottish do these things, we call it nationalism. Scottish nationalism. Why is it tribalism in Nigeria? It's nationalism. You should stand for your nation. Stand for Igbo nation. Be proud of Igbo nation. Be proud of Yoruba nation. Stand up for it. Just like a Scotsman would do, it doesn't mean that it's no longer in the UK. It's still in the UK, it's still British. But it's Scots. It's Scottish. It's Irish, but it's British. It's Welsh, but it's British. It's English, but it's British. It's Yoruba, but it's Nigerian. It's Hausa, but it's Nigerian. And the fact that you are talking about your ethnic group does not mean that you are now a tribalist. Until you use that your tribal racism, like this man puts it, to push down other people or pull down other people because you are under. You can't push anybody down. You are under. You are the one pulling people down. And you always be under if you are pulling people down. Excuse me. So they said other groups do not have less tribal instincts. And I don't think anybody has ever denied it. I can't deny being Yoruba because I want to be Nigerian. I can be both. So why am I going to pick one? My brother in Benin Republic is a Benino, but he's also Yoruba. The one in Togo is Yoruba, but he's also Togolese, like, but we are Yoruba. But once you start using that thing against other groups in Nigeria, you don't even have the right to call people tribalists. You are a demonic human being. You are demon possessed. Guys, these guys, what you don't read so far. You don't see some people get demon for body, like demon possessed people. And you be pointing fingers. You're travelers, you're travelers, you're travelers, you're travelers. Anyway, let's read a bit more. But it's true that other groups also had it. But no other group exploited the tribal factor as a defense mechanism or preached the gospel of hatred of other ethnic groups or reduced Nigeria history to the denominator of tribalism or descends to the extreme form of racism as the Igbo intellectuals did in the course of the Civil War. So yes, everybody had tribal instincts, but nobody did what they did. What you see in all of this is, so what's the name of the book? The book is called The Educated Elite in the Nigerian Society by E.B. Ayondele. There's a mistake the author is making. It's a mistake that the generation before us, the educated elite before us, made. And some of them are still making it right now. The aversion for the uniqueness or the differences that each group in Nigeria possesses. And the reduction of the love or celebration of those uniqueness to tribalism is one of the reasons Nigeria cannot make progress. Everybody should be proud of who they are. It doesn't stop them from being Nigerian. It's not this or that. These are not mutually exclusive concepts. Being a father, do you have to kill your mother because you want to give birth to your son? Are you saying that it's wrong to have your mother see your son, or you being able to perform those two roles? Does that in any way stop you from being a human being? You are the son to your mom, you take care of her. You are the father to your son, you take care of him. You have different relationships. Why do people think that everything has to be... is it difficult to compartmentalize? Why must all of us be grouped together into one thing and say, we are one Nigeria in Kiriko? It's a lie. You know. How do I know? Because my fathers did it. They were the nationalists. There's no group in Nigeria that did nationalism like Yoruba people. It's not even about Achebe nonsense. Achebe is talking without facts. Me, I'll tell you the facts. And we'll go deeper into it when we're discussing the evolution of Christianity in Yoruba land. The first nationalists in Yoruba land were Yoruba Christians. All of them. The idea was about Nigeria. They were Yoruba. They were comfortable being Yoruba, but they were thinking of Nigeria, Nigeria, Nigeria. They got to the point where they even started talking about Africa. Not in the Pan-African sense of we are all the same, but in the sense that, the African man should rise. They had this goal for the African man. Not that one group should lead the continent of Africa, or like the Igbos should, according to Nnamdi Azikiwe, or that the Igbos are superior to other people, according to Chinua Achebe. The Aryan race, younger brothers of Hitler. They did that until certain people got into politics in 1937. Everything had to change in reaction to the introduction of tribalism into politics in 1938. Z got in 37, he introduced tribalism in 38. He went berserk in 1940. By 1941, he just scattered everywhere. And you have the audacity to go around the country calling people tribalists. Listen, be proud of your ethnicity. Hate no man. I mean, we have goodwill towards everybody, love for all, respect for everybody. But you cannot misbehave in people's places and say that you are one Nigeria. About we are better than everybody. We are the Kiniko. You are more civilized is a lie. If you are more civilized, you can't be wearing clothes in 1963. There was an edict by the parliament in Enugu that people cannot come to Enugu market, that's the capital city, without wearing clothes. 1963. You are telling everybody in Nigeria that you are more civilized than them. How now? Meanwhile, can we not have conversations without saying, I am Kinikon than you? I am Kinikon than you. Because what you discover is that the person who is always comparing is hiding the real issue, which is inferiority complex. He has nothing. He's low. No matter how much money he has in his pocket, his brains are empty of virtues, empty of wisdom. He's always comparing. I'm better than you. In other words, your glory is in comparison. You can't be good on your own. You must compare, which is why everything, including basic things, become competition. I must have more than you. You must have more than me. Even when you're supposed to collaborate, you still must compete. I don't compete with Lolo. You still scatter everything. That's why we're where we are right now. I'm not saying only one ethnic group should be blamed for Nigeria's woes. Everybody has something they contributed. But I'm saying that people should own what they contributed. For instance, as a Yoruba man, what did we contribute? What we contributed was allowing our own place to be the turf for different groups that want to fight. Why? Because we ourselves were divided. So one will go with the north, the other will go with the east. Your land is where they will fight. When they finish fighting, they scatter everywhere. You're not able to say, this is what we want to do as a people. You have small issue, and then you let your ego overtake everything to the point where you must be right. Sometimes you have to be wrong. Not because you are wrong. Not every time. I'm not saying you should now become a doormat. But sometimes you just choose to... That's what our own issue was, especially between Papa and Akintola, which is the next series we're going into on Monday. These were best of friends. These were people who were so close. When Akintola's daughter was going to the UK, Mama saw her off to the airport. Mama HID. Gave her money, I think it was £50. These were people who the wives would wear Ashebi, and co. What happened between them? That's what we're going to go into next week. How did we allow that personal issue degenerate to the point where it now affected the entire people? And I can assure you, it's also what was affecting the entire Nigeria. What happened? We allowed it to happen. And I'll tell you why, how it's affecting Nigeria. If we had just stayed where we were and kept growing, everybody would have had to copy from us like they were copying from us in the 1950s. We were doing something, everybody saw it, they were copying it. When it worked, it worked. When it didn't work, they failed. But we were there. They started fighting. They had no other person. You know you can lead without being at the top. John Maxwell calls it 360-degree leadership, where regardless of where you are on the rungs of the ladder, you are leading. That's where we messed up. And we can own it so that we don't repeat it. Where you messed up is that you are Toju Bole Eronuru. You're always going to people's houses to tell them what to do, and you're trying to destroy everybody's house just to ensure that you are established. That's where you are, and that's why you're still messing up, looking for indigent status in 2025. Because you learned nothing from the past. You go to this place, you're a tribalist. I must be your guy. If I don't become your guy, you're a tribalist. You did it in the north, in the west, in the midwest, in the south, everywhere. Say what's happening now. We are one Nigeria.
All right. Thank you very much for listening. That was a reading of parts of this book, The Educated Elite in the Nigerian Society by E.A. Ayondele. And while we were listening, some people came in, especially on TikTok, insulting the hell out of everybody, but they were collecting because we had some people who were also responding right there on TikTok. So thank you very much for your responses. I don't think I need to go through those things they said earlier, but let me just answer some questions. We have some on YouTube. Someone says, do you believe we have to restructure the country? Absolutely. Maybe you're hearing me for the first time. Absolutely. Then you say, if we don't restructure Nigeria, then we have to secede or else we are finished. I'm not going to use the word secede. I'm going to say, if we don't restructure Nigeria, then Nigeria will break up. The burden of secession doesn't have to be on you. What you need is to have the country restructured. If not, then the union itself is broken. But that doesn't have to be your own. It's under conversation, this secession thing. But yes, I'm absolutely for restructuring. And people will say, I mean, somebody asked me one time, my guy says, oh, if you believe in all these things, why do you still want to be in Nigeria? They just push the Igbos out. And I asked the person the question, so if you push the Igbos out, are you going to leave West Africa? Are you going to leave West Africa? For instance, Ghana doesn't have an indigenous Igbo population, but Ghana is seeing where in the hands of the same Igbo people. So the issue really is not about pushing people out. The issue is about creating structures in your space that ensures that your own people are taken care of first. That structure will be important whether you are in Nigeria or you are out of Nigeria, whatever you're doing. And you cannot have those structures without understanding history and without stopping to pander because you have been emotionally blackmailed in the name of one Nigeria. So the sessions we are having is not to demonize an ethnic group or anything, but you see, you've got to understand that what you're seeing happen right now this is not the first time. This is not the first time. It has happened before. And it's important for you to know how those things happened, why they happened, and what was the response of other people in Nigeria to folks or to actions from a particular region. And one of the reasons is that you don't want to be blackmailed by people in Nigeria. You don't want to be, be the one whose emotions have been that's not the word, manipulated. That's what I'm looking for. Not to be manipulated by people who just say, oh, because they did this to me, not knowing that this was the plan. Apart from the plan, by the way, if you notice, I didn't read the 1944 document today. That's not what today's stuff is about. We're talking about what happened in 68, not even 44 now. This is I said earlier in the beginning that if you really study these things sincerely, you're going to have this compassion for Igbo people, especially the young ones. Life because of certain rhetorics from the elders. It's not that the young people, and when I say young, even people in their 50s, I mean, of course, they're not that young, but even they think in a certain way, and they believe those things. But sometimes I like to say it's not their fault. But if after hearing these things, or if they decide to read books and they still believe that thing, then it's not just their fault. They have to take responsibility for the mistakes of their elders because they are thinking exactly the same way. But the truth is, if you really study history and you see what the people were made to believe, and that's why victimhood is a religious belief in southeastern Nigeria. Like, it's something that you have to espouse. It doesn't matter what anybody does. You must be a victim. It's encoded in the DNA, and it's sad. I'm not saying this to throw jabs at all. It's actually sad. A person could have a PhD, could have 10 PhDs. I've heard
most educated persons speak in the exact same manner. Oh, they're doing this to us. Oh, they're doing that to us. But the question is how. You heard in this video, or by the way, if you came in late, please check out this video on YouTube, how Igbo intellectuals scripted the victimhood and supremacy narratives. And I said earlier that the first person who did it, that we have we have textual evidence, is Zik in 1949. Interestingly, 2 years before Zik gave that speech, delivered that speech in Aba in 49, there was a document that was released in 1947 by Arthur Richards. I've read it here before, where he talked about the fact that they contributed the least in the nation, but they clamored for they clamored for more and more of everything. That's how Arthur Richards put it. He said they clamored for more and more of everything, but they contributed the least. And that was in 1947, January. So that means he was already talking about what happened in 46 or 45, but this was 47. And that's why when Buhari's former President Buhari said, oh, we're going to build the second Niger bridge, he built it. What do you hear? Nothing has been done in the East. You've heard that before. Nothing. They don't do anything in the East. There's no federal presence. They're literally universities, federal universities, federal polytechnics, federal colleges of education all over the Southeast. But no, there's no federal presence at all. When you use that victim narrative, you're able to get what you want. It's a tried and tested tool of engagement. And it's important for Nigerians to know these things. Why? So that while you must be compassionate and don't allow yourself to become hardened, you feel the pain of other people and you're able to empathize, but at the same time, you can guard your heart so that you're not blackmailed with people's lies and propaganda. That's the point. And if you're Igbo, understand this. What you believe, for the most part, isn't the truth. It's propaganda, and it was designed by your intellectuals. Maybe that's why it's so effective. But you have your intellectuals telling you that there's no reason Nigerians should, tell Igbos that they were taking over things, even though they were taking over. But don't say we're taking over, because nobody has the right to take over like we do, because we have superior culture and civilization. Because we are open to change. And like Azikiwe said in 1940, because they had exceptionally developed brains. And anybody who speaks against this narrative, that person is a tribalist. No, you are the bigot. You are the hateful person who projects hate everywhere you go and tell everybody that they are hating you. You are not Chris. If you've seen that TV series, you know exactly what I'm saying. Everybody hates Chris. You are not Chris. People don't hate you. And if people hate you, maybe at some point you sit yourself down and say, how come they hate me everywhere? Let's even assume that hate is real. So they hate you all over Nigeria. They hate you in Ghana. They hate you in South Africa. They hate you in Mozambique. They hate you in Indonesia. They hate you in Pakistan. Now people are saying in Kenya. There's a video I'm going to play tomorrow of a Kenyan talking about different ethnic groups in Nigeria. You wonder if the person grew up in Nigeria. The person didn't even live in Nigeria. If something is so universal, isn't it important to actually sit down and have some introspection? Anyway, one more question for you. Why are Yoruba so ignorant about history? Why didn't our parents tell us about the First Republic? There's a saying, hard times make strong men, or let me say hard times create strong men create easy times create weak men, and then weak men create hard times. What our parents did, and I don't like blaming parents without giving context, providing context. So here's what I believe. I think that our parents knew how terrible things were, and they were trying to protect us. And in protecting us, they felt there's no need to even talk about all these things, because what are you going to learn from it? Because there's no way you're going to talk about this without going to it. And let me give you the context. So, 1937, Zik returns to Nigeria and joined the Nigerian Youth Movement. Right, 38, he began to insert ethnicity into Nigerian politics, championing the cause of the Igbos. And then he started
attacking Yoruba people much later, starting in 1941, with what he used with the ethnic politics he played in 41, using Ijebu people against the others. By 48, Yoruba people, for the first time, were able to actually lead a paper, like a newspaper, where they thought to themselves, like, you know what? Yes, we were nationalists before this guy came from Ghana in 37. We were always talking about one Nigeria, great Nigeria, all those things. But this guy, for the last 10 years, has been dealing with us. And I think they got tired of the nonsense when he attacked Ẹgbẹ́ Mojuduwa in 1948. And they began to respond. Now, they did that by the 50s. Towards the end of the 50s, 59, they were focusing on independence. But everybody still remembered who is who. I think the war made them soft pedal. The war made them soft pedal, in my opinion. And I think that what happened was that they felt compassion towards people from the Southeast. If you go on YouTube, I don't know, it's in one of the videos we uploaded some time ago of Yoruba men in the 1970s asking Igbos to return to Yoruba land. And when the white man who was interviewing them said to them, oh, but they left, they were even making excuses for the Igbos, saying, oh, they were misled. Those were their words. They were misled. That's why they followed the Juku. They were misled. So you see the heart for those who, having gone through whatever they went through, our people just felt, our fathers felt like, you know what, we can't really dwell on Kini. Now, it was a huge mistake. Because in that same video, I'll see if I find the video, I'll let you know, maybe tomorrow. But it's on YouTube right now, it's on the Busuyoris page. In that same video, I played another clip of Easterners, people in Port Harcourt, those must not return to their land. I sit down and think about it right now, and I wonder why did those people have a different? Because those ones had experienced firsthand what Igbo supremacy looked like. We hadn't. The politicians had experienced it amongst themselves, but as a people, we had not experienced it. In the Southeast or in the Eastern region, it wasn't just the politicians that experienced the things that the Igbos were doing. It was the ordinary people, especially during the war, before and during the war. For us, the common people did not have that experience in terms of, I mean, they knew it, but they knew the extravagance or the extremes they could go, for instance, in using police, but it wasn't as bad as in the South. But the intellectuals, some of them knew, but politicians definitely knew because they wrote about it. The war made them soft pedal. The war made Nigeria almost rewrite the story. What's this one? Who is this one? Geregu says, why fighting the war against the Igbo? Maybe the question you should ask is that, why did your leaders lead you into war without sense? You will hear things you don't want to hear. So please, writing in capital letters already shows that you are mad. You're actually, sorry, I'm sorry about the noise in the background, by the way. Our fathers, and the opportunity basically was that, listen, we're all together, we're all one Nigeria, everybody is fine. The war happened, no victor, no vanquished. As soon as they heard no victor, no vanquished, they got a weapon, and that weapon is what they're seizing today. That weapon was alive before then. It went down, but they took it again, and that weapon is victimhood. And I've said it several times. If you say no victor, no vanquished, you are creating a vacuum. And that vacuum will be filled by something, because nature abhors a vacuum. And what, before you know it, you can now use that to gain its leverage, its currency. But it expired now. Let's speak to this clown a little bit. It says, until Yorubas divide from Igbos, Yorubas will continue to be regarded as liars, envious. Nobody cares what you regard people as. You are the son of your father, the devil. And no, Port Harcourt is not Igbo land. Port Harcourt has never been Igbo land. Equal people are not Igbo. If you have a problem with that, find a transformer down your street and hug it. God bless you as you do so. Amen. I think any other question? Let me just see.
Someone says, why? If we catch you, we go use you do. Hey, yeah. You are talking about using human beings to do so, yeah? Are you? Oh, sorry, it's you. You are the cannibal. Oh, sorry. Sorry, my bad, my bad. My bad. My bad. My bad. Cannibalism is actually cultural to some people in Nigeria. I've never talked about it here. I mean, at least not in recent times. I think I've only referred to it, but I've never really sat down to say, let me discuss the topic of cannibalism in different parts of Nigeria. There are materials, books on these things for days. And it's not just something that happened in the past, it's also present. There are videos of things still happening today. So when you say you're going to make a person, use a person for suya, like, are you insane? How would you say that? But again, I think, even me, my bad. I assume you were human. All right. I think we're good. Someone says, what is holding the Igbo from dividing from Nigeria and going back to their landlocked region? I think the reason, of course, is because there's nothing in... They think there's nothing in that place. I don't think there's nothing in that place, but they think there's nothing in that place. And that's the reason. All this noise you see, and I've said this several times, I've heard some of the many people say the same thing. It's a way to trigger Nigerians. We'll do this. It's like you're an irritant because you're trying to get something. You are a child. Imagine ethnicity behaving like a child throwing tantrums. We will do this until you give us what we want. You cannot get it this way. You're just going to pass this thing from child to child. So from generation to generation. It's crazy. The cannibal says Igbocha is Igbo land. No, it's not. Just because you have a name for a thing doesn't mean that that thing belongs to you. Use your brains. Did your parents send you to school just to eat human flesh? Every time you call me, by the way, just get it, you are a cannibal. Because using that on a human being, even if it's a joke, that was even, and by the way, it wasn't a joke because that's your specialty. And you're not going to find anybody to eat here, by the way. You have to go to your family house. But here's the point. Different people call different places by different names. Does that mean that because that name is from them, that place belongs to them? Again, you are from an underdeveloped culture. So the Arabs called all of us Sudan. Does that mean that this land belongs to them? The Portuguese called all of us Guinea. Does that mean that this place belongs to the Portuguese? I'm sure you have a name for different groups of people in Nigeria. So because you do, the land belongs to you. Onirano. By the way, Onirano means you are stupid. I don't even know if there's an English word for it, but that's the closest interpretation. I don't like using words like that, but since I saw that cannibalist nonsense you wrote in the comment section, you are not worth respecting. You're very dumb. All right. I think we're good. It's been a nice run. I mean, today is Tuesday, so that's why I didn't show my face, but thank you very much for being here. We have shorter sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but we'll be again tomorrow. Tomorrow to be 1 p.m. It's going to be a full session. So yes, we're going to have a full session tomorrow. We're starting at 1 p.m. Ife time, West African time, and we're going to be discussing Aulo and Akintola, the battle for Western region. Okay, so we're trying to understand the issue between them. We tried to establish yesterday, the relationship way before, Western region politics, how they were together in NYM and worked as journalists together and had this friendship. We're going to go a bit deeper into that tomorrow. We're going to discuss what happened with their wives, the roles of their wives, and then we'll now get into what they did first as premiers and also how the cracks began to appear, and that will be something I think we're all going to learn from. So that will be tomorrow at 1 p.m. Ife time, West African time. Let me end by saying this. If you're Igbo and you've listened to this, let me tell you this. I understand if you feel angry. I even understand when you curse me. I get it. It's natural. Jesus says the truth, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free, or the truth shall set you free. But there's something that a lot of scholars have said, which I agree with 100%. Jesus says you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. But between the knowledge, right, that you gain and the freedom that you gain is the fact that you're going to be miserable. The truth sometimes makes you miserable before it sets you free.
because sometimes you just can't believe that your elders were that terrible. People have said to me, a young Igbo man said to me once, said, "Are you telling me that everything that we believe is a lie? Are you saying that we have to now stop believing everything we've been told?" In other words, he's not saying I'm lying. He's saying, are you saying we should stop believing everything we have been told? In other words, are you saying that we should change the very foundation of our identity because there's something called the truth? So the real issue is, you're not angry with me because I'm lying. You're angry with me because you cannot afford to not be a victim. You cannot afford. It's as if you are doing something against your ancestors by saying that they lied. But I'll say this to you. My prayer for you is that somewhere along your journey in life, God, in His infinite mercies, will find a way to reach your heart, to let you know that healing is better than making money off of wounds, and that what you have been taught is to actually profit from wounds, not to seek healing. And so maybe at some point in your life you'll find that healing, which will also come by the truth, and your anger that you have for me will be resolved, and the resolution will be that you will accept that your parents were wrong, because they were. Your intellectuals were terrible because of the kind of things that they, and I've read a number of their books, and even though I've not read a lot, I won't lie, I've read some books, but I've read a number of books by Igbo authors. They are all alike, and it's a shame. There are exceptions, though, here and there, but the generality of the people, I don't know. I know why. Man, let me not lie. I know why, and it's sad. You went through the war, you lost, you had nothing out of it but propaganda. But I pray that you get, healed, that you find healing, and that your land will be healed, because there's no way that land can be healed if these lies are still perpetuated by the people. Because everybody hates me. If you have hate towards others, in the name of justifying the fact that they hated you, after a while you begin to hate yourselves, because that hate is not about the outsider, is within. And I have a question I want to ask people before I go. I read from Chinua Achebe. For those who have been insulting me, just one question. Don't answer today. Go and think about it. Well, it's one question that I think will lead to other questions. Number one question is one question, but it gets plenty picking. Have you read the book by Chinua Achebe, Things Fall Apart? Right? Have you read that book? Number one. Number two, do you know that book has been translated into many languages across the world? The last time I checked, over 50 languages. I would like to ask you, when you read that, if you have read that book, if you compare that book with There Was a Country, do you notice any difference? Do you see a person who, by the way, I think it was Tony Fowler who was saying that all the proverbs that Chinua Achebe used in his book were actually Yoruba? But we'll talk about that another time. The last question is, if you have read Things All Apart and you enjoyed it, which I think is a fantastic, at least for that level, nice novel. It's a very good novel, to be fair. It's all over the place. I'll tell you that if you read his book with that same mindset, read more of his novels if you want to enjoy it for an Igbo person. And even if you're Yoruba, Things Fall Apart, Arrow of God. But don't read, if you read Man of the People, just know that what you are reading is a man's way of telling us what his people were planning. He wrote about the coup, exactly how it happened, published it the month that the coup was executed, and then his people turned around and said he was a prophet. Just a bunch of interesting characters. Anyway, When it comes to his fiction, I think he's good. When it comes to non-fiction, I think he writes nonsense. And I'm not sorry. I've read the book, The Trouble with Nigeria, and I have read There Was a Country, and I have read Man of the People. And I'll tell you this, there's no way a man would write things like that. And there are many other things, like the ones we read today, where you hate people and you say you are better than them and you say all these things and you somehow raise a generation that just hate Nigeria and call it zoo and just say all these things and somehow expect that your part of the country will develop. So my admonition is not even a question. My admonition is that while you should study books written by authors, please read those books and read other people's books, so you can see that what Achebe did, like what we just read, was what he did with the books that he had written, apart from his fictional whatever. What he has done is to continue the work he stopped after the war, which is he was a propagandist for Biafra. Himself, Okonkwo-Ndem, Uchechukwu Mereje, the lot of them, they were spreading propaganda, and Achebe never stopped doing that thing until he died. His last book tells us that that was what he was committed to as far as non-fiction writing was concerned. And I feel very sorry for Igbo, young Igbo people, because, and when I say I feel sorry, sincerely, I understand why you hate everybody. I understand why you think people hate you. That's what your intellectuals told you. But my question to you is this: are they God? Can you not question what they're saying? We question our gods. Orishabo Legbemi, Shembo Tidami. We question our heroes. There's nobody on the continent that can lace the shoes of our Lord. None. Guess what? We still question him. He's literally an Orisha for us. We still question him. You have a bunch of interesting characters just writing absolute rubbish, insulting everybody, dominating everywhere, planning to take over everywhere, supporting unitary system, supporting military takeover. Just like some of you, the children, are looking for a way to get military involved in Nigeria. By the way, the way your fathers didn't get their dreams accomplished, you will never, in fact, yours will be worse. You will never accomplish your dreams. There will never be a military takeover in this country. This country will only get better. Going to the defense headquarters saying soldiers should do the needful. Bunch of clowns. Do better than your parents, and it starts by taking responsibility. Read, study, and stop whining and claiming to be the victim. May God bless you and keep you. And I think somebody wants to speak, but we don't have the time anymore. You didn't come up early enough. But thank you very much. May God bless Nigeria. May God bless every region, every part of this country. May we all experience growth in everything that we do. May all the good wishes that we have towards Nigeria come to pass, and those who wish it evil, may that evil never cease in their homes and in their regions. And if you're honest, or if you're an honest person, you will say amen. If you're not honest, may God help you. Sanjay, I have to go. Today is Tuesday. I was supposed to leave here at 3 o'clock. It's already almost 4. Tomorrow, please. Tomorrow, 1 p.m. Ife time, West African time. We'll have another conversation tomorrow. I'm supposed to be somewhere, so please try and understand. We'll be here again tomorrow at 1 p.m. Ife time, West African time. Please join us. We'll discuss Awolowo and Akintola, the battle for West Nigeria. That'll be part 2 tomorrow. Do have a lovely evening. We're going to have our anthems, by the way. Before we go, we must do that. All right, so again, after all our Turanchi, we will play the Nigerian anthem and also the Yoruba anthem. You won't take more than 20 seconds. Really? Okay, come and take your 20 seconds. Bye. Remember what you said, 20 seconds.
How are you, sir?
I'm very well, Kojometa.
Yes. My first one, I traveled. I was relocating. So for some check.
Oh, okay.
And this thing is becoming a cycle now. It's becoming a big cycle. I spoke with my brother and he told me his 6-year-old son becoming exciting. Thank you very much. It's becoming exciting. I don't think they really want to do it. That's just what I'm saying.
Thank you very much, my brother. It's the truth. I don't think they want to go. By the way, even when they wanted to go the first time in 60, when they were fighting in 67, Ojukwu was asking for dual citizenship. He wanted to be Biafran and Nigerian at the same time. That's the person that's supposed to be leading the people, though. May God just forgive the people who have led the Igbos, and may God raise great leaders for them. And I mean, they have good ones now. I see a number of them. But may God help them. And they also have terrible ones, like the one that went to trade fair and was telling Lagos state government that they should not destroy people's land because we wanted foreign. See, you cannot get foreign investors if you are chasing local investors away, even if they are unlawful. They've not been very lucky. May God have mercy on them, but there are good ones amongst them as well. But whatever happens, they'll be good. And if they're not good, they'll be sent back home. May God help all of us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. No, thank you very much for being part of today's session. We're going to have the anthems now, and then we'll call it a day. Again, please let's be here tomorrow at 1 p.m. if your time, West African time. Now I'm trying something. I was trying something earlier while we're listening. We're trying to, see if we could stream on Telegram. Apparently, we have different options, so we'll explore them as we go on. So thank you very much for being here. If you want to support what we're doing, please reach out to me on Telegram at Busui Oris or on Facebook at Busui Oris. I would like to use the opportunity to thank all those who, from time to time, deem it fit to support what we're doing. May God bless you and keep you and increase you on all sides. Amen. Thank you very much. If you'd like to join, please let me know. Just reach out to me on TikTok on it could even be TikTok, Telegram, Facebook, wherever. And we'll continue the session tomorrow by 1 p.m. Ife time, West African time. We're going to have our anthems now, but for those on YouTube, because we have copyright issues whenever we play these things on YouTube, we're going to have to let you go. But thank you very much for being here. God bless you and God keep you and your family. And may Nigeria work in our lifetime. And may we be part of the solutions that we seek. In Jesus' name. Do have a lovely evening. I'll see you tomorrow. YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, I think it's X and Twitch. All right, then have a lovely evening. And then those of us on TikTok, we're going to have our anthems. Okay?